Ladies and gentlemen, you are now entering the Decent Christian Talk podcast. Enjoy.
Decent Christian Talk episode number 87. What's up, everybody? I am Gabe Jones.
And I am Nathaniel Jones.
I've got another Jones brother here this time.
Making an appearance for 2 times within, I think, the same
Yeah,
month.
how about that?
Pretty impressive.
This is a show by the fans, for the fans. Just like you, we are fans of great music, and we've got a great show for you today. We've got the newest member of the Facedown Records roster. American Arson is on the show today, and they are quickly becoming one of my favorite bands.
I've listened to them some. They sound pretty good. This is a huge thing for them to be signed down to Facedown Records recently.
Facedown Records has a pretty good roster. They have Comrades.
They have Impending Doom. And then the late and the great For Today was one of their big time signs.
They have Dens, one of our favorites. Deathbreaker, who's been on our show. There's a lot of great artists on Facedown Records. American Arson is the newest artist, and we will be talking with them later in the show. Before we head into that, we need to talk about our Patreon page. Guys, check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Decent Christian Talk, and that's how you can help us fund our show for as low as $1 a month. There's some nice little perks in there. If you subscribe to our show for $5 a month, you get a bonus episode every show. This week we're going to be talking about our throwback album of the week, and it is Hello Hurricane by Switchfoot. It turns 10 years old this year.
That is crazy.
That's crazy. We'll also be giving our picks for album of the week, and we're not going to reveal those here. You'll have to check that out on patreon.com/Decent Christian Talk. There's also a perk for $10 a month, and every 6 months, if you're a subscriber on that level, you get a physical copy of an album,
a free album
of your choice out of any artist that is on our show. That's pretty good.
It's a couple easy clicks on your smartphone that I know you already spend a couple hours on each day. So
yeah, and that's these are ways that you can help us fund our podcast. Unfortunately, it does cost money to have a show like this, but with your help, we are still here, and we hope to continue to still be here. And we would just like to thank everyone that's helped us so far, people like Maria and Lorena and Leslie, Jody, Michael. The list goes on and on. You guys are a big help, and we couldn't do the show without you.
Thank you, guys.
So, yeah, American Arson, they're not a brand new artist. They have been around for a little while, but they are the newest artist on Facedown Records, and they are on the show today, and we are excited to have them. And I'm going to be quiet now because without further ado, here's our interview with American Arson.
All right, hit that horn, babe. Let's dance.
Tell me a little bit about yourselves. I know you guys have been around for a minute, but with the new signing to Facedown Records, a lot of people are discovering you guys for the first time. Where are you guys from? What's your background with music, and how did you get to where you are right now? I know that's a long answer probably, but sum it up, I guess.
Yeah. So do you want me to start like before American Arson, or just where American Arson started,
like,
or
well,
how far
even,
back do we want to go?
Even like preliminarily, like what got you interested in music when you were younger, and I don't know, what bands did you grow up listening to and all that?
Yeah, okay. So I was kind of indoctrinated into music. My mom was a piano and voice teacher growing up, So I started on the piano, singing, and then got into guitar. Early teenage years and stuff, and started, forming bands and all that stuff. And I went on my first tour when I was 17. I kind of booked that myself, and that was kind of my intro to DIY touring, which would end up being a big part of everything that I've done so far. And then probably I was in a few bands that I thought were serious at the time, but probably my first real serious full-time kind of band was a band called Good Luck Varsity that I was in for a number of years, somewhere around 2007-ish to about 2013. And then when that kind of dissolved in 2013, I decided I wanted to start something with less people in it, just because I had all the guys in Good Luck Varsity were my best friends, and I think we just kind of burned ourselves out with touring. We were touring a lot the last couple of years. I did 8 months out of the year, and it was just kind of, we burned our relationships out a little bit, and I was a little bit jaded after that. So I wanted to start a solo project. I grew up listening to a lot. I mean, some of the pop punk bands that were coming out in the early 2000s and stuff, but also a lot of the post-hardcore emo kind of revival that came out in the early 2000s, kind of before metalcore took off. So where you still had a lot of those lines between, punk and emotional hardcore and, the Midwest emo and all that stuff. But before they kind of divided into the subgenres we know them as today, where everybody was doing kind of all of that all at the same time. It was all punk, it was all hardcore, emo, everything was just kind of one big blend. And that's kind of what I grew up in. And so when I started American Arson, it was just sort of made sense to kind of blend all my influences. What came out of it was I don't know, a little bit of punk, a little bit of post-hardcore, some riffier stuff, even some of the spoken word stuff that kind of used to pop up in some of the post-hardcore and emo stuff that around the early 2000s. It was only ever supposed to be a solo project, and then after a couple of years doing some tours, I was hiring a drummer at the time. It just kind of was a little bit lonely, and the guy who I was hiring, he was doing an awesome job, but it was cutting way into touring profits, and then also he had other bands that he was playing with full time, and so I decided to kind of branch out and try to make it into a full-time two-piece band. And that's where Jesse and I connected, kind of through a friend of a friend that had mentioned to him that I had a little, I don't know, application type thing online, looking for a full-time drummer / vocalist. So he came and auditioned, and he liked the stuff, and we got along well, personally. And that was, I want to say 2015, 2016, something like that. So we've been a two-piece band now for a couple of years. All the touring that we've done up to this point has been DIY stuff. We have released a few EPs prior to the Facedown stuff. I don't know if people know that or if they just know the EP that just came out on Facedown. I'm not really sure. Like you said, I think a lot of people are kind of just hearing about us for the first time. So you probably have to ask somebody who's in that boat where they fall there. But yeah, it's been a fun few years getting the thing off the ground, and just kind of looking forward to seeing where it goes next.
Yeah, this like you talked about the two-man band kind of thing. Those have kind of been popping up all over the place. What's that look like for you guys creatively when you guys are creating songs, and what does that look like even with a live show?
Yeah. So when we first started, it was all about live looping. So everything that we did was live and on the fly. I play guitar, but it's tuned down to drop B. So it's right there in that range where a baritone guitar could be. I play with really, really heavy gauge strings, and um, so I played that through a guitar amp and through a bass amp, and then create live loops on the fly that I pitch to a different guitar amp. So we have kind of like the same setup as like your traditional four-piece rock band, where it's rhythm guitar, lead guitar, and bass, but it's all coming from one instrument essentially. And then Jesse plays the drums. Both of us sing. So when we started, that was basically that was it. That was how we did everything. On Rise and Fall, the EP that just came out, we started to branch out and do some synth stuff, some strings, orchestral things like that, and adding those in. And so obviously when we play live, we don't tour with a philharmonic. So when we play live, the strings and stuff like that are sampled in via track. But all the guitars, bass, drums, vocals, all that stuff is always live. And we just try to. I have a pretty sizable, I guess you could say, pedal board, and a few tricks, on there that kind of help to expand the sound, and just the way that I route the signal through a couple of different amps. It helps to expand the sound and really make it sound full. We had somebody at an early show tell us we were a two-man wall of sound, and so that's kind of like the tagline that we use all the time now. We have that on a lot of our stuff. So, yeah, we when we want people to come to a show, we don't want them to sit there and think like, oh yeah, that sounds pretty big for a two-piece. We just want them to say, yeah, that sounds pretty big, period. So that's the goal, and we do as much of that live as we possibly can, and like I said, drums, bass, guitars, and vocals are always live. So yeah, just trying to give an authentic experience, but also make it sound as big as we possibly can with two dudes.
Is that stressful for you? I mean, that's a lot of responsibility. All that sound coming out of that you're pretty much responsible for. Does that stress you out, or are you just kind of in the groove now?
That's a really good question, actually. Nobody ever asks me that. And yeah, when I'm building a loop, near the beginning of a song, or we have some songs where, the song will go for a bit, and then there'll be like a break section where I start building a loop. But obviously you can't just stop and, completely and build a loop. Right. It has to stay within the flow of the song. So there are some songs where we'll play a particular part like several more times than it appears on the recording, just to so that people live can see it being built, and sometimes people engage with that, where they're like, oh, this is cool, I can see where this is all coming from. But yeah, when I'm building the loop, I'm like totally locked in, because if you get something wrong, I mean, there are undo switches and stuff on the pedal, but a lot of times we're moving along too fast to go back and do any of that. So if I'm building a loop and I get something wrong, it's going to repeat itself over and over and over. So and then another thing that I never thought about when I wanted to do this is, like, if you're a guitarist in a standard four-piece band and you've got like a lead that you play that comes up like 6 or 7 times over a song, and maybe it repeats for like 4 bars, you probably play that lead every time. If you practice that song like 6 or 7 times, you probably play that lead like 200 times over the course of that practice. Well, if we practice that song 6 or 7 times, I play the lead 6 or 7 times, because it's going to loop. So I have to then, make sure that I go back and rehearse stuff more, because, it's muscle memory is built on repetition. And so if I only rehearse my part the same amount of times that we play the song, I'm getting like a fraction of the repetitions that a person would get who's doing, who's playing that lead over and over and over for however many bars it plays. So yeah, there's definitely little things, like little considerations, but I think for the most part, if somebody came and saw us, that they would get the vibe that we were pretty carefree, that we were having a good time up there, that we're not super stressed. I definitely get a little intense and a little focused when when I am building a loop, but I don't know if stressed would be the right word. Just you know, a little more focused, a little more locked in during those parts, and then a little bit more just kind of free with the other stuff. You know, we like to move around and have a good time, and you know, get it 95% right. But you know, if you're gonna get it 100% right, then you're probably standing still. You're probably not, you know, giving off a lot of emotion, and we want it to be an experience for the people that come and watch. So, yeah, I think that's part of it.
So when you're building and constructing these songs in the studio or wherever you write these songs at, when you're recording this to go on a EP, do you consider the live show? Like, how am I going to make this work? Is that something that you consider? Or you just kind of have to figure that out once it's all recorded?
No, we have to consider it beforehand. Yeah, we're really big on wanting to be able to reproduce everything that we do live. You know, we don't play every song that we have live, obviously, but we want to have the ability to play every song that we have live. So we don't really have very many songs that are like just studio creations. So usually, yeah, I sit down when I'm writing a song and think about, okay, is this something that I can make work? And I sit down with my pedal board. Like, there's awkward things too that you don't think about. Like, I need to stop this loop, and I also need to switch from clean to distortion, or I need to turn my delay pedal on, or things like that. So there's parts that then get put into the song based around those things. So, but you know, I think when rock and roll started out, the recording was a way that somebody could take the live show home, right? It was all about the live show, and the recording was like a vehicle where somebody could take the live show home and have a piece of that at home. And now I think that is flipped, where it's all about the recording, and then the artist kind of just does whatever is necessary to reproduce that, whether that means they backtrack, you know, all their vocal harmonies and guitar parts or something, or whether that means, you know, they shy away from certain songs that are either too difficult or just aren't practical. And we kind of have that old school mentality where we want our live show and our recording to be representative of one another. We don't want to, you know, do a whole bunch of artificial stuff. And I don't have any problem with bands that use like heavy backing tracks. And like I said, we do, you know, some strings and some synthy parts and stuff like that on there. You know, and if that's somebody's cup of tea, then that's totally fine. I'm not here to, you know, judge or run down anybody else, but I do think that authenticity is important, and it's important not to deceive the people who have come to see you. So if you're using a backing track or something to make it, you know, your sound bigger and add in all these parts that you dreamt up in the studio, and they're not practical, you know, we can't bring an orchestra, we can't bring a choir, something like that. Sure, awesome, go for it. But if you're using, you know, tricks and tracks and stuff like that to trick a unsuspecting fan into thinking that you are better than you actually are, that's kind of where we are like, you know, we're not in love with that. We just want to be authentic, and we want people to see the real us. And if that means we make a few mistakes or something, that's fine, because you know, we're human. We're not you know, musical robots or anything like that.
So you talked about the wanting to kind of drop down the band members to a two-man. Well, you started out solo, but then you ended up as a two-man. What are some other advantages of a two-man band where, I don't know, maybe you feel like you're able to be more creative, or you know, what has been some advantages that you have seen?
Well, definitely logistics. So, you know, if we want to rehearse, then I don't have to look up, you know, 4 different dudes and find out what they're doing and what their schedule's like. We just, you know, I call Jesse and we figure it out. Same thing with touring, you know, obviously bands of our size, they tour, they come home, they have to work in between, you know, it's not just life on the road and then, you know, living in luxury or anything when we give it back. So So we have to make sure that our jobs sync up and allow for the same touring availability, or festival seasons coming up, so are we able to do that? And so without having to have so many guys, logistics are easier, but also, the execution once you get out on the road. We took a 3-person crew on the last tour that we did. We took a guitar and drum tech that was the same person, one guy to do guitar and drum tech. We took a merchandise person, and then we took a photographer. And so, if a normal 4 or 5 piece band is taking a 3-person crew, now you're talking, 7, 8 people, difficult to accommodate, vehicle wise. You're talking, if you're staying at somebody's house, that's a lot to ask of somebody. If you are getting a hotel room, now you're getting 2 hotel rooms. And so, just having 5 of us out there on the road, our crew outnumbering the band, and we still only had 5 people. So that was really nice. But, I just think it forces us to be more creative. We can't just kind of say like, we're just going to play like some rhythm stuff, and then we got this one guy who's really good, and he's just going to shred on the guitar the whole time, while we just, kind of play the song. So we have to, think of, hey, how am I gonna have leads and rhythms, and can I do a catchy riff that's a little bit of both? So just things like that. I think it's definitely not something that I ever would have thought I would be doing. I was in a band before that had 6 dudes. We had 3 guitar players and a keyboardist and a drummer and a bass player, and it's just, kind of all the bands that I've been in have been kind of like that, where everybody sings, everybody, we got multiple, instrumentalists and things like that. And so this is totally new territory for me. And so I do think it stretches you creatively as well.
It probably makes a little bit more sense financially too, you don't have to have so many more people to pay too, I would think.
Yeah. That's a good point. We, obviously Jesse and I are, we're able to kind of be 50-50 on that stuff. But on the front end of it, before Facedown came along, if you've got 4 or 5, 6 people in a band and it's time to record an album or something, like, okay, everybody, you divide that cost up 6 ways or whatever. But with Jesse and I, we had to, either divide it just 2 ways, or we had to really get out there and grind and make sure we were picking up only profitable tours and only profitable shows, so that we could make the money, so that we could go in, so that we could record. So we had to be really smart about those kind of things too, because there's only 2 people that you don't have, the ability to split that cost among so many people. But thankfully now, with Facedown in the picture, obviously having a label where they can step in and just provide resources to us that we maybe didn't have access to on our own, and provide opportunities for us to record a full length or something like, we've only ever done EPs just because financially that's what made more sense, and or to do some festivals that maybe we could have gotten on before, but we wouldn't have gotten paid for them, or maybe we couldn't even have gotten on because, they're only taking bands that are, at a certain level of notoriety. So, it cuts both ways, but we're happy with where, with where it's gone with just the 2 of us. And we've had people ask before, like, hey, you guys looking for a bass player? And, we actually had one guy send us a message asking if we were looking for a drummer, which is kind of weird because there's only 2 of us and one of us plays drums. So, we've kind of made the decision that we want to just stay at 2 of us right now.
Nice. So. Let's talk about the Facedown Records relationship for a second.
Yeah.
I know you guys just signed with them. You're their newest band. What does that mean for you guys? I know you just kind of talked about you kind of have an upgrade with resources and all that, and you probably obviously have more ears now listening to you. But what does that mean to you professionally, personally? What does that mean to you?
Well, first of all, we're super grateful to Facedown. we love the bands on Facedown Records, you know. So when we first heard from Jason, we were pretty flattered because, you know, that's kind of the scene that we have always envisioned ourselves being a part of, but kind of on the outside looking in. And so, you know, humbling is just, it's really cool to be, you know, mentioned in the same breath as a lot of these bands. Not that we have accomplished, you know, anything that some of these Facedown bands have. But, you know, it does mean that we'll be able to take on a full-length album, you know, something that our fans kind of have like a joke going now at this point. Every time we drop new music, they're like, oh yeah, another EP, you know, because we've done so many of them now. And, you know, so from that standpoint, it's really cool. But yeah, we actually had the EP done, and it wasn't even really gonna be a full EP. You know, it's only 3 songs, and one of the songs is sort of like a bridge between the 2 songs. But it was more just to be a comeback release. Jesse and I took a hiatus last year for most of 2018. We played our last show of 2018 in before the hiatus, I should say, in early March, and then we didn't play again until the following November. So we took about 8 months off. I had to sell a house, and then buy a house, and then get married, and then go on a honeymoon and all that stuff. So, so we just had decided that we wanted to do a little like comeback release, just to, you know, reintroduce ourselves and say, hey, we're back. Here's a new sound that we've kind of been experimenting with. And so that's where the idea for Rise and Fall came. Initially we were thinking about doing a 7-inch, one side being Rise, one side being Fall, and then the idea to do the and kind of song that bridged the two came along, and so the 7-inch idea was kind of out the window then. But so we went in, we recorded it, we were all set for independent release right before we went out on tour in March. And then Jason had already been talking to us a little bit and asked us to send it over. We sent it over, and he proposed that we do it as kind of like a surprise release and just introduction to Facedown fans. And we were kind of taken aback. We had already scheduled it to release on Spotify, and we had already ordered, you know, physical product. And so we were just so like kind of, you know, we weren't expecting that at all. We thought he would just listen to it and say, cool, maybe let's, you know, look at something for the future. So it kind of came out of nowhere, to be honest. And, but it's fun to do stuff like that. I think to be, you know, everybody these days online, you know, you have like hype videos, and you've got teasers, and you got all this stuff, and it's all come back tonight for an announcement. And then the announcement is that there's going to be a big announcement, you know, next week. And then you get to next week, and it's a teaser video that is, you know, meant to announce something that's coming the week after that. And so, you know, I think it was really cool to go against the grain and just be like midnight on, you know, on this particular day. Hey, guess what? Here's a new release, and by the way, we're on Facedown now. So, you know, that was kind of fun. And obviously in the future, we'll, you know, probably do a more traditional kind of promotion campaign as we get ready to put out a more full length release. But yeah, it was really cool how it all came together a little bit last minute, but, you know, we just kind of made the decision right away and jumped in.
And they have so many, I don't have to tell you this, they have so many killer bands on their label right now. Dens just got signed last year. That's another example of a band that got signed.
Love Dens.
And then,
yeah,
you know, they got a #1 hit just right after they signed. So, I mean, you never know what could happen to you guys with that.
Dens is so incredible. You know, it's hard to pick favorites on the Facedown roster. There's so many awesome bands, but I really, really like what they're doing right now.
Yeah, they're one of my faves too. Comrades is another. It's just there's so many good bands on that label.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a chance to play with Comrades before any of this Facedown stuff was in motion. They came through with they were on tour with Levi the Poet and with Listener.
Cool.
And I was like, oh, I'm going to go to this show. These are awesome bands. I love these bands. And then we got a message from a local promoter that was like, hey, you guys would fit really well on this show. And I was like, yep, that's cool. So I sold my ticket that I had already bought to somebody else, because I was like, I guess I don't need this anymore. So that was really cool. And so I got a chance to play with Comrades, and I remembered that I had played with them in a previous band and seen them do some of the looping stuff, and sent a message to them actually years ago when I was starting this whole thing up. And, hey, how do you guys go about doing this and that? And how do you monitor the drummer and things like that? And so it was really cool to cross paths again. And they put on such an incredible live show. We were just, it was great for a single night to be, in the same venue and the same bill, same breath as all those bands. And then, to, a year and a half down the road or whatever, to be label mates with them is just really awesome. So
when you talked about your the way that you value the full sound of a live show, it reminded me of Comrades, because I've seen them live a few times, and they're just a 3-piece, and they sound absolutely incredible live. The sound is just so full, and I'm glad that you said that you heard that from them as well, because that's the first band I thought of when you said that.
Yeah, they do a really good job with their tones.
Yeah.
They they pay a really close attention to what they do tonally, and the bass tone in particular is just so incredibly thick and distorted. I don't know what Laura does to get that bass tone. I'd have to take a look at the pedal board or the whatever, but yeah, that's incredible. It almost sounds, and I know she plays some chords on the bass.
You're right.
And which just sounds so incredibly thick. So yeah, I mean, if anybody's listening to this right now and has not seen Comrades play live, you got to go watch them play.
Yeah, and they just had a new single out, so go check them out.
Yeah.
So we don't want to miss talking about the new EP. It's called Rise and Fall. And I've wondered of this about you. I know a lot of the EPs that you've released kind of have a concept behind each one of them. Is that one thing that you're intentional about, that you want to kind of have a theme throughout the entire project? Is that something that you seek out to do? Is that something that just kind of happens? But talk about that a little bit, and then talk about what brought you to making Rise and Fall, Rise and Fall, what it is.
Yeah, I think, in the past, in bands that I've been in before, I always want to write really honestly. I want to write from the heart, and write what I'm feeling. And so, I'm a normal human, and so my life experience is all over the place. And some days I feel one way, and some days I feel another. And so I've listened back to albums and EPs and stuff that I've made with previous bands, and I really, really like the songs still. I feel like it's just kind of proud when I listen back to those. Oh yeah, I'm happy with what I did in this particular period of time. But there isn't that continuity of topic matter or continuity of sounds. And I'm not talking about making an album where every song sounds the same, because that gets boring really quickly. Right. But just talking about finding a pocket of sound and whether it's just one theme, or whether it's like a group of themes that are all tied together by some common thread. For me personally, that's what I like to listen to, and so that's what I like to make. I'm a huge fan of Coheed and Cambria, and for those, if somebody's listening to this and they don't know anything about Coheed, or you've only heard their singles, every album that Coheed has put out, with the exception of one, is based on a science fiction comic book series, graphic novel series, that the lead singer and his wife have written together. And so you can kind of, even if you haven't read the comic books, you can kind of feel the theme throughout the piece of music, and it feels like a piece of music. And you go to see it live, and even if they don't play the songs in the same order or whatever, it feels comprehensive. And so I'm really into that. And then right off the bat, when we first started releasing these EPs, released the Vine and the Branches, which was just kind of, the Vine and the Branches was just like capturing the immediate emotions that I had in the aftermath of my former band dissolving. And then when we got done, and that was only a 4-song EP, and I got done with that, and that one came off a little more like angry, I think. Angry at some stuff that I saw going on in the world on one hand, and then angry at some stuff that I saw going on personally on the other hand. So there's 4 songs on that EP, and they're all pretty angry, but 2 of them are kind of angry at personal stuff, and 2 of them are kind of angry at things that I saw going on in the world that I just wasn't okay with. And then it didn't feel like that, as most of us feel when we feel anger. It's an incomplete emotion, It's not even really an emotion. It's like a turning point where you get to decide which way you're going to head after that. And so we put out. It didn't feel complete. We put out a acoustic EP after that, and I say we, but at this time it was just me. Jesse wasn't there yet, and that one just ended up extremely, extremely sad. So it was like sort of that stage where all the anger had gone, and it was just kind of like, still kind of like broken a little bit from all the stuff that had happened. And yeah, it's like my wife, who's been our, biggest supporter, and she's incredible. But she can't even listen to that one because it's too sad. She's just like, I listened to it once, that's enough. It's too sad, whatever. And I think a lot of other people agree, because it's still like, if I look on Spotify, it's still like our lowest played stuff. There's people that are like, this is too depressing, not listening to this. And then, so I kind of thought that was going to be the end of that, like what we called the origin story, like EPs. And then that didn't feel complete either. That's not the note that I typically like to end things on. And so then we put out one more, which is called The Blood and the Bones. And that had kind of a note of like, of resolution and defiance in it. Like, this is how I'm going to get through this kind of thing. And that felt finally like the right way to kind of end that. So we put those 3 EPs out, and then that was super like, intimidating for people when we would play live, and they'd be like, I don't even know where to start. So we put them all on one disc, actually. We call that the Origin Story Trilogy. So there's those 3 EPs that kind of form a trilogy. It's 12 songs, so it's almost like we have an album there. And so we started with that, and then a couple years down the road from that, we released an EP called Waymaker that kind of hit on some of the themes from the Origin Story stuff, but really just took a different turn. And that one was pretty conceptual as well. And there was like there's only 6 songs on it. And there's a 3-part kind of little concept journey in there, called Dead End Part 1, 2, and 3. But then so that one kind of had a theme, I guess. And then Rise and Fall, that had the theme that kind of following the words of in the title, Rise and Fall. So yeah, I guess I don't know if that's how we're going to keep doing things, but it's what's worked for us so far, and it helps me to focus definitely lyrically, and focus thematically on, okay, this is what we're discussing now. Otherwise, I think my brain would just kind of jump all over the place to all these different things. Like most of us do. I don't think I'm unique there. So,
yeah. So I know you guys will be touring. I know you guys will probably have some news about maybe a full length release at some point. Where can people find you online to follow you?
Yeah. So we're on all the social media stuff: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that. We have a website as well that our tour dates go to. This summer, we're doing things a little bit differently. We've done some of the longer tours, in the summer and stuff. We did a pretty big Midwest, East Coast, or not really East Coast, but sort of in that direction a little bit into Pennsylvania and stuff. A lot of Midwest states and stuff. A couple summers ago, we went Central U.S., West Coast, all that, went all the way up California, all the way up to Oregon, and then made the big loop back around to the Midwest. And this summer we're gonna try something a little bit different. We're gonna do a few festivals, which we've announced one of them so far, but there's a couple more that still need to come. And a couple people, I think, on social media have read between the lines and figured some stuff out, but I won't announce anything officially yet. So we're gonna do a few festivals and then a few dates in markets that we haven't really gotten to yet. So if you are in New England, we haven't really been up that way yet. We're gonna come up there and do some stuff. So it won't be a comprehensive U.S. tour where we're gonna hit every spot. So if you're hoping for that, don't get too mad at us. We'll make it back around your way at some point. But people can always stay up with us on social media. We're pretty active. We try to post every couple of days. We had an incredible photographer that came out on our last tour with us, and we have a ridiculous amount of really cool live photos that we like to share. So we post those every couple of days, and anytime that there's a tour announcement, you can find us there on one of those socials, on all the socials, but also our website will always have tour dates and stuff like that. So we've got a couple Michigan things coming up, being that that's where we're from. And then, some other stuff that we just haven't announced yet. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Evan. I know you got some plans for the weekend, but it was fun talking to you, and I'm looking forward to see where the band goes.
Well, thank you as well. We're always really excited when anybody cares enough to give us the time of day, and so we appreciate we appreciate it, and thank you to all the listeners for giving us a chance, and we hopefully we'll be around to meet some of you guys face to face in the next year or so.
That was our interview with American Arson. I'd like to thank Evan from American Arson for joining us on this show. He represents half the band.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that kind of blows my mind, the way that they, we kind of got into how they play live and how they loop the guitars. And I've been to acoustic shows where they've looped guitars in, and they've made that interesting. I really want to see them live, because
me too.
that has to be pretty fun. We kind of talked about some potential tour dates coming up for them, and he hinted at one. Since the recording of that interview, which happened early last week, there has been a big announcement of the Audio Feed Festival lineup in early July, and I believe American Arson is on that lineup. So you can check them out at Audio Feed the first week of July in, I think it's Bushnell, Illinois. And you can also check out American Arson's social media if you want to follow them and keep up with them. And check out their new EP called Rise and Shine. Or
Rise and Fall.
Rise and Fall. Rise and Shine is a breakfast. I'm a terrible host. But yeah, check out their EP. It just came out.
It's their first EP and recording with Facedown.
Yeah, and it just came out on April 5th. And it is a pretty good EP, really good EP. It's one of my favorite releases of the year so far. So check that out, and also check us out on Facebook, Decent Christian Talk discussion page. We have all kinds of fun stuff on there during the week. Keeps you going on the social media. We're also on Twitter, DC Talk Act 2. We're also on Instagram, DC Talk Podcast. And we also have a website, decentchristiantalk.com. Of course, we have our Patreon page, patreon.com/decentchristiantalk. Either website, Patreon or decentchristiantalk.com, is a way that you can donate to us if you'd like to keep us on the air, if you like what you hear. And one of our favorite things that you do every single week is share the podcast with a friend. If you know someone that's into this type of music, if you know someone that would like to listen to the show, we would greatly appreciate if you could share this show with a friend. That really helps us. That's how we've grown over the years, and that definitely helps us. Another way that you can help us out is give us a nice review on iTunes. Check us out on Spotify. Subscribe to us on either one of those, or both if you'd like, and that would also help us out.
Just go across the whole spectrum for us.
Yes. We're also on YouTube as well. You can find us on there, and we're also still on SoundCloud. But subscribe to us wherever you listen to us, and that would greatly appreciate it. We want to thank you guys for joining us this week. We hope you liked the show. We will catch you next time.
Don't forget to tip your waiters and waitresses. Thanks.